All right, so I'm redoing a video that I did a little while back where I talked about short and long-term thinking and how short-term thinking is the enemy of often long-term results. And when I first did it, I didn't have the right microphone on, so I wound up putting a YouTube video with no sound to it. So hopefully I can recapture my thoughts to some degree. So one of the things that I talked about is how people think and compare, for example, because this is only one example of short and long-term thinking, various training protocols in terms of results, and they'll often refer to studies that are, 6 to 12 weeks in length, and then talk about, who got the best results using what methods during that period of time. Now, there's many flaws in many of the studies, the length of it being just one of them. The selection bias is often done with athletes who are gifted, the way the studies are designed, the way the terms are defined, all that. But just to belabor just the idea of short term. So at the end of the day, when it comes to exercising, in order to improve your health and your functional ability, my strong belief, in fact, is that you need to be doing something that you can continue to sustain doing for your entire life. Of course, if you're an athlete and you're simply training for a certain event, the Olympics or a championship or whatever, there may be along the line some short-term goals. But if those short-term goals are done at the expense of long-term health and functional ability, then I would question whether or not the risk-benefit ratio makes sense. But people have to make their own personal choice about that, because for some people, winning that championship or getting that gold medal or whatever is worth it. But for those of us who are simply training in order to improve our functional ability, i.e. our ability to remain physically independent well into our old age, and our health, hoping that our old age is nice and long, then if there's something that is better for you in the short term, or give you supposedly, which I even question that, better results in the short term, but in the long term, for example, will eventually destroy your joints or gives you arthritis or things like that, then it's irrelevant. So the weird analogy, I've used this before, but I think it's fitting, is if your goal was to whiten your teeth, and you want white teeth for life, because if I gave you a way to have the whitest teeth possible in the next 3 months, and then made you realize that in 5 years from now you would have all kinds of dental problems, you probably wouldn't take it. And you wouldn't take that opportunity. Excuse me. And of course, with exercise, we don't even stop to think in most cases. Matter of fact, most of us think that if it's good for us in the short term, it'll be good for us in the long term. But that's often not the case. And another analogy would be therapeutic effects of a drug versus the side effects of a given drug. The ideal drug would give you the therapeutic effect with none of the side effects. But in fact, virtually all drugs have side effects, and unfortunately, in many cases, the greater the therapeutic effect, the greater the side effects. So the ideal drug, if a pharmaceutical company could design it, would be one that had reliable and therapeutic effect that would improve things with no side effects. But with exercise, the therapeutic effect, the desired result, is to get in better shape. And there are many ways in which you can accomplish that in the short term. The side effects are many times injuries, because what people don't realize, and we've often thought if a little bit is good, a lot is better, is that activity, exercise are all stressors on the body. And when it comes to stress on the body, it's a really simple equation. The Goldilocks principle comes into play. Too little stress is no good, and too much stress is also no good. So it's the Goldilocks, it's the one that's just right in the middle. So of course, if you've gone from no stress to some stress, in other words, if you're completely sedentary and you start to do virtually any exercise program, you're going to improve. And of course, you conclude that, geez, I've improved this much by doing X, if I do X times 2, I'll improve even more. But the fact is that just as the tide comes in only to a certain point and starts to recede, the same thing will happen. And so I suspect what you have is, as a matter of fact, it comes to me, this makes the most sense, is that various stressors, exposing our bodies to various extremes occasionally, whether it's cold showers, whether it's exercise carried to failure, whether it's saunas, all these things have been shown to be beneficial to us, but it's a matter of you expose your body to something that is a fairly major stressor, and then you allow your body to recover from that in order to allow your body to make the adaptation that has been stimulated by exposing yourself to the extreme. So when people are just thinking short term, they lose track of that altogether. And that's not only true for exercise. I started off using that as an example, but I could use it for many things. A business person who often will think about quarterly results and not think about long-term viability of his company. This happens with corporations. This happens with many things. There's so many things. Young people in our youth, we often engage in behaviors and lifestyles that in the short term seem very pleasurable, only to come back and haunt us in the long term. So often it's just a matter of delayed gratification to some degree, is the secret to long-term happiness. But I do think there has to be a balance between the two, because some short-term goals along the way are right, but you have to take those goals in the right greater context. Anyways, all for now. Hopefully I've captured most of what I originally did in that silent recording. Bye for now.